What if I told you your government might already have the power to mobilize the military anywhere in the United States without telling you exactly why? No public notice, no clear limits, just a vague order that could, in theory, put troops on your streets tomorrow. And if that wasn't enough, there's also a mysterious aircraft from the Qatari government quietly making its way into U.S. hands. Who asked for it? What's it for? And why are so many details buried behind closed doors? Today, we're diving into two stories that reveal how power, secrecy, and foreign influence collide, and why you should be paying attention right now. It started with a deceptively simple question.
Secretary, thank you for being here. Good to meet you. General, thank you. Ms. McDonald. I'll start with General Kane. Is the United States being invaded by a foreign nation?
Sir, thanks for your question. I think at this point in time, I don't see any foreign state-sponsored folks invading, but I'll be mindful of the fact that there has been some border issues throughout time, and defer to you to DHS, who handles the border along the nation's contiguous outline.
Is there a rebellion somewhere in the United States?
Sir, I think there's definitely some frustrated folks out there.
I mean, if frustrated folks were a rebellion, and I guess that goes to my question for the Secretary. Two things. There should be some sort of paper flow that the committee, the Congress, the public can look at in invoking Title 10, Section 12406. So can you give us some clarification on whether the orders that were issued apply to specifically Los Angeles, to California generally, or is this a nationwide order?
The orders that have been issued, which are publicly available and known, relate to an ongoing situation in Los Angeles, which could expand to other places. But it's quite easy to point out that there has been an invasion of 21 million illegals in our country under the previous administration.
So
this administration was elected to get a hold of that.
Yeah, could we just
and when you have ICE officers being attacked with concrete blocks,
Secretary,
they should be allowed to do their job.
Secretary, I'd really like to not try to create a viral moment for either of us. I'm actually trying to understand kind of the scope of this order. The order effectuates the ability to mobilize the Guard and the Marines. In the order, it does not specify a location. It does not specify which Marines or which Guard. And I'm trying to figure out, if you decided to do this collectively in Kansas or any other place, would you need to specify a new sort of fact pattern, or do you think this order applies to any Guard, anywhere, any service branch, anywhere? It's just I get your justification. Mm-hmm. We disagree about the circumstances. I'm just trying to figure out, did you just potentially mobilize every Guard everywhere and every service member everywhere? I mean, create the framework for that. I understand you didn't. I'm saying, what does the document do, in your opinion?
Senator, if you notice, the initial order of 2,000 in California was followed by a follow-on order for the additional 2,000, with a recognition that the situation there required more resources in order to support law enforcement. So part of it is getting ahead of a problem so that if in other places, if there are other riots in places where law enforcement officers are threatened, we would have the capability to surge National Guard there if necessary. And thankfully, in most of those states, you'd have a governor that recognizes the need for it, supports it, and mobilizes it him or herself. In California, unfortunately, the governor wants to play politics with it.
I did step on the last part of your sentence,
okay.
So I'm going to try to take turns here. Just on the 747 question, did the Department of Defense initiate the conversation with the Qataris? Did they initiate the conversation? How did that go?
Senator, I have to go back and review it, but we've been a part of the ongoing conversation.
Yeah, but I think it kind of matters who's asking, doesn't it?
Ultimately, the Defense Department is, or soon will be, when the memorandum of understanding is signed, in receipt of a gift from the Qatari government that could serve, once it's modified, eventually as something that the president could use.
I mean, I think this is illegal and unconstitutional, and I won't rant about that. But I actually think, from the standpoint of our collective responsibilities, it very much matters what the paper flow was, who started these conversations. Did it come out of the White House? Did it come out of the Secretary of State or the President or the SecDef or at a lower level or ambassadors? Like, we're entitled to know, because we can agree or disagree about the propriety of this. But my basic request of you is that if we're going to disagree, let's disagree with the same set of facts. Let's have the documentation on the Qatari aircraft. Let's have the same set of documentation about what these orders do and don't do with respect to Los Angeles. Because if we're just going to scream past each other and then see who succeeds more on the internet, that's actually not the way to do this work. We're supposed to be in struggle against each other, but in a way where we actually have all the information. You have our information, we have yours, and so I'm hoping that we can get some documentation about both matters in a nonpartisan, bipartisan way. Thank you.
Senator Brian Schatz looked straight at General Kane and asked if the United States was being invaded by a foreign nation. The answer was hesitant, almost awkward. No, there's no foreign army storming our borders. But there was a nod to ongoing border issues, with a quick deferral to the Department of Homeland Security. That might sound unremarkable, but here's the problem. The political rhetoric around this is painting it as if we're living through a Red Dawn scenario, where a foreign army has already landed. And that kind of language isn't just dramatic, it can be dangerous. When politicians frame the situation as an invasion, they create the perfect excuse to militarize our streets over tensions that, while real, are not the same as an armed foreign assault. This is how we get fear-driven policies that bypass accountability. Communities are left scared, tensions spike, and real solutions are pushed aside in favor of showy, forceful displays. Instead of fixing problems at the root, leaders score political points by acting tough. Schatz, to his credit, wasn't letting this slide. He pressed further, asking about the scope of the orders that had been issued. Were they limited to Los Angeles? To California? Or did they apply to the entire country? The answer from Secretary Hegseth should concern everyone. The orders, publicly available but vague, related to a situation in Los Angeles that could expand to other places. And here's where it gets unsettling. There was no specific location or unit named in the document. In theory, this opens the door to mobilizing any guard unit, anywhere in the country, under the same order. Critics say this creates a dangerous precedent. One vague piece of paper could become the justification for mass deployment under unclear conditions, without needing to revisit Congress or get additional authorization. Meanwhile, the reality at the border is far more complex than the political soundbites make it seem. It's been a pressure point for decades, fueled by a mix of economic needs, humanitarian crises, and broken immigration pathways. America's demand for labor keeps pulling people in, while outdated and inefficient systems fail to process them in a fair or timely way. Yes, there are legitimate security concerns, and yes, law enforcement officers, especially IC, are facing increasingly dangerous situations, sometimes even physical attacks. But a blanket military deployment doesn't address the labor shortages, the asylum backlogs, or the root causes of migration. Those require targeted policy reforms, not tanks and troops rolling through civilian neighborhoods. And just when you think the only fight here is about the border, another storyline drops from the sky, literally. In the same session, Senator Schatz asked an entirely different question. Who initiated the talks about receiving a 747 aircraft from the Qatari government? Was it the White House, the Department of Defense, diplomats, or someone else? The answer was vague again. Something about ongoing conversations that would eventually lead to a memorandum of understanding. But that's not the kind of answer that puts anyone at ease. Why? Because taking significant gifts from foreign governments isn't just a feel-good moment of international friendship. It raises serious legal and constitutional questions about foreign influence and corruption. Even if the deal is above board, the lack of transparency makes it look suspicious. Rumors suggest such arrangements can come with strings attached, even if they're not written down. A foreign power providing assets that could be modified for use by the U.S. president? That's the kind of detail that should be openly debated, not whispered about in closed meetings. The heart of both these controversies comes down to the same issue: trust. Mobilizing military forces on U.S. soil is an extraordinary step. Accepting valuable assets from a foreign government is another. Both should be backed by clear, accessible documentation. The American people deserve to know the full reasoning, the exact terms, and the chain of command for decisions like these. Without that, conspiracy theories thrive. People fill the gaps with their own narratives, and those narratives get louder and more polarized the longer the truth stays hidden. Some might argue that secrecy is necessary for security reasons. But there's a difference between operational secrecy during an active crisis and hiding the scope of an order that could apply nationwide. There's a difference between withholding the tactical details of a deployment and refusing to clarify who initiated a foreign gift agreement. When you blur those lines, you weaken public trust and give ammunition to those who claim the government is acting without accountability. State governors add another layer of complexity. Some are quick to greenlight National Guard deployments in response to crises. Others hesitate, worried about overreach and escalation. This tension is actually healthy. It's part of the checks and balances built into our system. But it only works if all sides have the same set of facts. Schatz put it plainly: if we're going to disagree, let's at least disagree with the same information in front of us. That means having the documentation for both the National Guard orders and the Qatari aircraft deal on the table, accessible to Congress and the public. The refusal to provide these details is more than just frustrating. It's dangerous. When leaders keep the scope of their power vague, they expand it in practice. When they hide the origins of foreign gifts, they open the door to speculation about influence and corruption. This isn't about partisanship. It's about ensuring the government is working for its citizens, not for its own unchecked authority or the interests of foreign powers. Both the National Guard orders and the Qatari aircraft gift reveal how secrecy can chip away at public confidence. It's not enough to say, "Trust us." Trust has to be earned through openness. That means publishing the memos, releasing the emails, and clarifying the orders so the public knows exactly what's being done in their name. If these actions are justified, the documents will speak for themselves. If not, the American people have the right to demand change before those vague powers become the norm. Because here's the bottom line: unchecked power rarely stays unused. Once a precedent is set, it's easier for future leaders to expand it. If one vague order can mobilize troops nationwide, what stops the next one from being even broader? If one foreign gift can slide through without clear oversight, what stops others from doing the same on a larger scale? Transparency isn't just a nice idea. It's the safeguard against waking up one day in a country where decisions this big happen entirely in the dark. So, what do you think? Are these orders and deals smart crisis management? Or are they dangerous precedents wrapped in political spin? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because the debate over power, secrecy, and accountability is far from over. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the next investigation goes even deeper into the kind of political maneuvering that shapes our lives, whether we know about it or not.